What if I told you that the person you walked past on the street yesterday, the one you barely noticed, could be worth billions of dollars? What if that quiet individual sitting alone in a coffee shop was secretly responsible for saving thousands of lives? Today, I'm going to tell you the extraordinary story of Marcus Webb, a man who became one of America's greatest philanthropists while living in complete anonymity. This is a story about judgment, humility, and the price of doing good in a world obsessed with appearances. Marcus Webb donated over $8 billion to charitable causes across America. He built hospitals, funded schools, saved family farms, and lifted entire communities out of poverty. But nobody knew it was him. To the world, he was just another face in the crowd. And because he didn't look the part, because he didn't act like people expected a billionaire to act, they treated him like he was nobody. They looked down on him. They dismissed him. Some even treated him like trash. This is his story. It's a Tuesday morning in downtown Chicago, and Marcus Webb is standing in line at a small coffee shop on West Adams Street. He's 52 years old with graying hair that he cuts himself to save money, wearing a faded blue jacket he's had for 15 years, and carrying a worn canvas messenger bag that's seen better days. To anyone watching, he looks like just another person struggling to get by in an expensive city. The young barista behind the counter, a guy named Tyler, is scrolling through his phone, barely looking up as Marcus approaches. Marcus orders his usual, a small black coffee, nothing fancy. He pulls out exact change from his pocket, carefully counted coins that clink onto the counter. Tyler doesn't even glance at him. He just sweeps the coins into his hand with visible impatience, his expression making it clear he's bothered by someone paying in change. No thank you, no smile, not even eye contact. The next customer approaches, a man in an expensive suit talking loudly on his phone about a business deal. For that customer, Tyler transforms completely, all smiles and enthusiasm. Marcus takes his coffee and finds a seat by the window. He pulls out a newspaper and begins his morning ritual of reading every section cover to cover. This is his life, being invisible while simultaneously changing the world around him. At the table next to Marcus, two women in their 30s are having an animated conversation. They're both dressed immaculately, carrying handbags that cost more than most people's monthly rent. One of them, Jessica, leans forward excitedly. Did you see the announcement? The Horizon Foundation just donated another $50 million to children's hospitals across the Midwest. Whoever runs that foundation is incredible. Her friend Melissa nods enthusiastically. I know. They're completely anonymous though. Nobody knows who's behind it. Can you imagine having that kind of money and just giving it away? I heard it might be some tech billionaire from Silicon Valley. Then Melissa glances disdainfully around the coffee shop, her eyes briefly passing over Marcus without really seeing him. Unlike some people, she says. I swear, this neighborhood is going downhill. Look at the kind of people who come in here now. Marcus hears every word, but his expression doesn't change. He turns the page of his newspaper and continues reading. What these women don't know, what nobody in this coffee shop knows, is that Marcus Webb is the Horizon Foundation. Every dollar, every grant, every life changed, it all comes from the quiet man in the corner whom they don't even see. To understand Marcus Webb, we need to go back 30 years, to a small town in rural Indiana called Millbrook. Marcus grew up in a tiny house on the edge of town, the only child of Helen Webb, a single mother who worked 3 jobs to keep them afloat. Money was always tight. There were nights when Helen would tell Marcus she wasn't hungry so he could have a second helping of dinner. High school was brutal for Marcus. He wore the same 3 outfits in rotation, clothes from thrift stores that never quite fit right. Kids made fun of him constantly. They called him Poverty Webb and Trash Boy. The rich kids, whose parents owned the few successful businesses in town, were the worst. They had new cars for their 16th birthdays, while Marcus walked 5 miles to school every day. They never let him forget his place. But Marcus had a gift. He was brilliant with technology, teaching himself to program on an old computer his mother bought from a garage sale. By the time he graduated high school, he could code better than most professional developers. He couldn't afford university, so he got a job at a computer repair shop and taught himself everything else at night. Within 7 years, Marcus had developed a piece of software that revolutionized database management for small businesses. He sold it to a major tech company for $12 million. He was 25 years old. Most people would have celebrated, would have finally bought the nice clothes and the fancy car. Marcus did none of those things. He put half the money in investments and immediately started working on his next project. More importantly, he went back to Millbrook and handed his mother a check for $2 million. Helen cried for an hour straight. But success revealed something in Marcus that had always been there. During those years of struggle, he'd watched wealthy people treat poor people like they were invisible or worse, like they were problems to be avoided. He'd seen how money created barriers between people, how it corrupted empathy. And he'd made a decision: if he ever had money, he would never let it change who he was. So even as his wealth grew exponentially, as millions became hundreds of millions and eventually billions, Marcus continued to live simply. He bought a modest house in a middle-class Chicago neighborhood. He drove an old Honda Civic. He cut his own hair. He shopped at thrift stores, not because he had to, but because he wanted to remember. He wanted to stay connected to the reality most Americans lived in. And he started the Horizon Foundation. Marcus created the Horizon Foundation with a simple mission: to help people who had been overlooked, forgotten, or dismissed by society. He funded it entirely with his own money, but he structured it so that his identity would remain completely hidden. All grants were made through layers of legal entities. All communications came from foundation staff who had no idea who the actual donor was. Why the secrecy? Marcus had learned something important. When people know you have money, everything changes. They treat you differently, want things from you, judge you by different standards. He didn't want gratitude or recognition. He wanted to help people the way he wished someone had helped his mother, anonymously and without expectation. Over 20 years, the Horizon Foundation became one of the most significant philanthropic organizations in America. It built schools in neglected rural areas. It provided college scholarships to thousands of underprivileged students. It bought and forgave medical debt for struggling families. It saved farms from foreclosure. It funded food banks, homeless shelters, addiction treatment centers, and mental health clinics. Marcus personally reviewed every grant application, working 18-hour days, reading thousands of stories from people asking for help. He cried over some of them, laughed at others, and felt a deep sense of purpose that no amount of personal wealth could have given him. He was making a difference, real and tangible, in ways that mattered. But in public, in his daily life, Marcus remained invisible. And because he looked ordinary, because he dressed simply and didn't broadcast his wealth, people treated him the way our society often treats people who appear to have less, with indifference or contempt. On a Thursday evening, Marcus is doing his weekly shopping at the neighborhood market on Clark Street. He's pushing a cart through the aisles, carefully checking prices, clipping coupons from the circular he picked up at the entrance. A store employee named Derek notices him, and something in Marcus's appearance triggers his worst instincts. Derek approaches with barely concealed hostility. "You gonna buy those apples or just handle every single one?" he says sharply. "Some of us got work to do, and we don't need people making a mess." Marcus is holding 2 apples and hasn't made any mess at all. "I'm just shopping," he replies calmly. "Is there a problem?" "Yeah, the problem is people like you coming in here, wasting time, making us have to follow you around to make sure nothing disappears. You know what I'm saying?" The implication is clear and insulting. Derek is suggesting Marcus might steal something. Marcus could respond in many ways. He could reveal who he is, could make a phone call that would get Derek fired within the hour. The charitable foundation that helped fund the community center where Derek's daughter goes to after-school programs? That was Marcus. The scholarship fund that helped Derek's sister go to community college? Also Marcus. But revealing any of that would defeat the entire purpose of his anonymity. So Marcus simply continues his shopping with Derek, following him at a distance, clearly trying to intimidate him. At the checkout counter, the teenage cashier counts his payment with exaggerated slowness and visible annoyance, sighing loudly. "Next time, maybe use a card like normal people," she says. "You're holding up the line." Marcus turns around. There's no line. Nobody is waiting behind him. On Saturday night, Marcus does something unusual. He goes out to dinner at Bennett's Steakhouse, one of those places where investment bankers and lawyers celebrate their big wins. Marcus goes there once a year, on the anniversary of his mother's death, and orders her favorite meal. He eats slowly, remembering her, wishing she had lived long enough to see all the good her sacrifices had made possible. The hostess, Victoria, takes in Marcus's worn suit and outdated shoes with barely concealed disdain. Her smile, warm and welcoming seconds ago for the couple who just entered ahead of him, vanishes completely. She makes a show of carefully examining her reservation book, even though Marcus can see his name clearly written there. "I'm not seeing it," she says coolly. "Are you sure you made a reservation here? There's a diner about 3 blocks down that might be more appropriate." When Marcus points to his name right there on the page, Victoria's lips press into a thin line. "Fine," she says. "But I'll have to seat you in the back. We can't have you at one of our main tables." She leads him through the restaurant, past the beautiful dining room with its crystal chandeliers, past the tables by the windows with views of the Chicago skyline, through a narrow hallway to a cramped table near the kitchen. It's the worst table in the restaurant. 25 minutes pass before anyone approaches his table. When his food finally arrives, 45 minutes later, it's placed in front of him with minimal care. The server doesn't ask if Marcus needs anything else, doesn't refill his water, just turns and leaves. At the table directly next to his, 3 men in their 50s are having dinner, clearly celebrating something. They're loud, drinking expensive wine, their conversation aggressive and boastful. One of them, Richard, leans back in his chair. "So I told the board, either we cut the pension plan or we're laying off half the workforce. They folded like a cheap suit. Saved the company $12 million a year." His companion Tom raises his glass. "Beautiful. That's the problem with this country now. Too many people with their hands out, expecting something for nothing. Whatever happened to personal responsibility?" The third man, Douglas, nods vigorously. "Exactly. You see these people panhandling on Michigan Avenue? It's disgusting. I saw one the other day, young guy, probably 30. Get a job, you know." Richard leans forward conspiratorially. "And don't even get me started on these charities. The Horizon Foundation, you heard about them? Giving away billions to random people. It's enabling dependency. If I had that kind of money, I'd invest it in real businesses, create jobs, not just hand out free money to losers who won't work." Marcus's fork pauses halfway to his mouth. They're talking about his foundation, dismissing everything he's worked for. He wants to turn to them and explain that the Horizon Foundation has created thousands of jobs, has saved businesses, has given people the tools to succeed. He wants to tell them about Maria in Detroit who used a foundation grant to start a bakery that now employs 20 people, or about James in rural Mississippi who used foundation money to save his family farm and now supplies produce to 6 counties. But he says nothing. He continues eating his mother's favorite meal, listening to wealthy men dismiss the work that has become his life's purpose. On Tuesday evening, Marcus attends a community board meeting at the Lincoln Park Community Center. What nobody at the meeting knows is that Marcus built this center. The Horizon Foundation donated $18 million to construct it 5 years ago. Marcus comes to these meetings occasionally, sitting in the back, never speaking, just listening to people talk about using a space he created. Tonight's meeting is contentious. The center is facing a funding shortfall, and there's debate about which programs to cut. The meeting is being chaired by Councilwoman Patricia Ware, a woman with political ambitions and a reputation for grandstanding. Marcus takes a seat in the last row, blending into the background as usual. During a break in the agenda, Councilwoman Ware stands up and her eyes scan the room, landing on Marcus. "Before we continue," she says, "I want to address something. This is a community meeting for people who actually contribute to our neighborhood, who have a stake in what happens here. I'm not sure who you are, sir, in the back row, but these meetings are for community members. If you're just here looking for handouts or information about our assistance programs, there are appropriate channels for that. This isn't the place." The room goes silent. Heads turn. Marcus can feel dozens of pairs of eyes on him. The assumption is clear, because of how he looks, he must be here asking for charity. Marcus speaks calmly. "I'm a resident of this neighborhood. I have every right to be here. I own a home on Orchard Street." This causes a small stir. Orchard Street is a nice street, modest but respectable. Several people look skeptical that Marcus could own property there. Councilwoman Ware's expression hardens. "Well, even so, if you're not going to contribute to the discussion, perhaps your time would be better spent elsewhere. We're trying to have a productive meeting, and frankly, your presence is making some people uncomfortable." Marcus could stand up right now and tell them the truth. He could explain that he donated the money that built the very building they're sitting in. But that would defeat everything he's worked for. So he simply says, "I apologize if my appearance makes people uncomfortable. I promise I'm just here to listen and learn. I care about this community deeply." There's something in the way he says it, a quiet dignity that makes a few people shift uncomfortably in their seats. But nobody speaks up for him. When the meeting ends and Marcus walks out into the night, he passes a bulletin board covered with thank you notes and photos from community events. There's a large plaque on the wall that reads, "Lincoln Park Community Center, made possible by the generous support of the Horizon Foundation." Marcus pauses to read it, as he does every time he visits. It's the closest he ever comes to seeing his work acknowledged. Behind him, he hears two women talking. "Did you see how Patricia handled that homeless guy? Good for her. This community has standards." Late one night, Marcus is in his home office, the only room in his modest house that reveals his true life. Multiple monitors glow in the darkness as he reviews hundreds of grant applications. He reads about the Martinez family in Texas, whose daughter needs a specialized surgery that insurance won't fully cover. He approves a grant for $200,000. He reads about a veteran in Oregon trying to start a furniture-making business. He approves $50,000. He reads about a rural school district in Alabama where teachers are buying classroom supplies out of their own pockets. He approves $2 million. This goes on for hours. Marcus gives away millions of dollars in a single night, each grant carefully considered, each representing a life that will be changed. His phone rings around 2 in the morning. It's Daniel Park, one of the few people who knows Marcus's secret. Daniel has been helping run the Horizon Foundation for 20 years. "I'm sorry to call so late," Daniel says, "but I wanted to give you a heads up. There's a journalist named Rachel Morrison who's been investigating the Horizon Foundation for about 6 months. She's convinced there's something suspicious about us, like we're a money laundering operation. She doesn't understand how we can give away so much money with zero overhead." Marcus sits back in his chair, exhausted. "That's ridiculous. We're completely legitimate." "I know that," Daniel replies, "but she's good, and she's persistent. Eventually, she might piece it together and reveal your identity. I think we should meet with her, maybe help her understand what we're doing and why." Marcus is quiet for a long moment. The idea of exposure terrifies him. If people know he's a billionaire, every interaction will be filtered through that knowledge. The barista who ignores him will suddenly be attentive. The store employee who follows him around will be apologetic. He'll never again see people's true nature. But there's something else too, he's tired. 20 years of being invisible is exhausting. 20 years of being dismissed, looked down upon, treated as less than. "All right," Marcus finally says. "Set it up." 3 days later, Marcus and Daniel meet Rachel Morrison at a small coffee shop on the South Side. When Daniel introduces Marcus as the founder and sole funder of the Horizon Foundation, Rachel's pen stops mid-note. She looks at Marcus more carefully, taking in his worn jacket, his simple appearance, everything about him that screams ordinary person, not billionaire philanthropist. "You're joking," she says. "I'm not," Marcus replies. "I understand that's hard to believe based on how I look. That's kind of the point, actually." Over the next 3 hours, Marcus tells Rachel everything. His childhood in Millbrook, his mother Helen, the philosophy that drives his philanthropy. He shows her documentation, bank records, proof of everything he claims. Rachel listens, takes notes, and by the end, she believes him. But she's also troubled. "Marcus," she says carefully, "I have to write this story. This is huge. But I want you to understand something. When this comes out, your life will never be the same. You'll be famous, probably more famous than you can imagine. Your privacy will be gone." Marcus nods slowly. "I know. But maybe that's okay. Maybe it's time for Americans to see what's possible when someone with resources actually cares. And maybe it'll inspire others to treat each other with more dignity, regardless of circumstances." Rachel gives Marcus 1 week before she publishes. 1 week to prepare for the tidal wave that's about to hit his life. On his second-to-last day of invisibility, Marcus goes to his coffee shop one final time as an invisible man. Tyler is behind the counter, same as always. Marcus orders his usual and pays with exact change. Tyler doesn't even look at him. Tyler, Marcus says, can I ask you something? Do you like your job? Tyler looks up, surprised. What? No. It sucks. Why? I just wondered. You seem unhappy. What would make you happy? Tyler sighs, clearly thinking this is the weirdest conversation he's ever had with a customer. I want to be a photographer. I'm actually pretty good. But cameras, real professional equipment, that all costs money I don't have. So I make coffee and watch my dreams stay dreams. Marcus nods. I think you should pursue that. You never know what opportunities might come your way. Tyler laughs bitterly. Yeah, right. That's what rich people say. Marcus takes his coffee and finds his usual seat. He pulls out a small notebook and writes down Tyler's name. Tomorrow, the Horizon Foundation will receive an anonymous tip about a talented young photographer who needs support. By next month, Tyler will receive a grant for $25,000. That's Marcus's last gift as an invisible man. The article runs on a Sunday morning. Rachel Morrison's piece is the lead story on the Chicago Tribune's website and the front page of the print edition. The headline reads, "The Invisible Billionaire, Marcus Webb's 20-year experiment in anonymous philanthropy." The article is powerful. Rachel has captured not just the facts of Marcus's story, but its deeper meaning. She writes about wealth and empathy, about judgment and dignity, about the ways American society treats people based on perceived economic status. She includes interviews with dozens of people who have been helped by the Horizon Foundation, people who share tearful testimonials about how grants saved their lives. She also includes recent interviews with people who have encountered Marcus in his daily life. Tyler admits he never really looked at the guy, just another customer who couldn't afford to tip. Derek claims he treats everyone with respect, but his co-workers contradict him. Councilwoman Ware offers a politician's non-apology. The restaurant hostess Victoria couldn't be reached for comment. By Sunday afternoon, the story has been shared over 2 million times on social media. By Monday morning, every major news outlet in America is covering it. Marcus Webb, the invisible billionaire, becomes the most famous man in America almost overnight. On Monday morning, Marcus makes a decision. He's going back to his coffee shop. Daniel thinks this is crazy, but Marcus insists. How will people treat him now that they know? When he opens the door, conversation stops. Everyone turns to look at him. For a moment, there's complete silence. Then Tyler comes out from behind the counter, his face red, eyes filled with tears. "Mr. Webb," he says, voice shaking, "I'm so sorry. I'm so incredibly sorry. I was such a jerk to you, and the whole time you were." Marcus gently takes Tyler aside. "Tyler, you treated me the way you saw me. That was the point. But I want you to understand something. You're going to receive a grant from the Horizon Foundation for your photography. It was already in process before the article came out. Use it well." Tyler starts crying, overwhelmed. But Marcus continues. "This gift isn't because you apologized. It's because you have talent and dreams, and those deserve support. But I want you to remember how you treated me when you thought I was just another broke customer. Remember it, learn from it, and treat the next person who comes in here with exact change like they matter. Because they do." On Tuesday evening, Marcus goes to do his weekly shopping. As he walks into the neighborhood market, heads turn immediately. Derek, the employee who had accused him of potentially shoplifting, sees Marcus and his face goes pale. He tries to disappear down another aisle, but Marcus follows him. "Derek, we need to talk." Derek can't meet Marcus's eyes. "Mr. Webb, I'm sorry, okay? I was having a bad day, and I took it out on you. You followed me around this store like I was a criminal," Marcus says quietly. "You humiliated me in front of other customers." "Why?" "Because you looked like you didn't have money," Derek admits. "Because I assumed things about you. Because I'm an idiot who judges people on stupid stuff." Marcus considers this. He could get Derek fired with a word. But that's not what he wants. "I want you to treat every customer with respect, regardless of how they look or what they buy. Can you do that?" "Yes, sir. Absolutely. I promise." "Good. Because that community center where your daughter goes after school? The Horizon Foundation built that. Remember that the next time you're tempted to judge someone based on appearances. The full weight of his treatment of Marcus hits Derek all at once. His eyes widen with the realization of what he's done, who he dismissed, what he almost destroyed with his casual cruelty. 1 week after the article publishes, the Lincoln Park Community Center hosts a special town hall meeting. The room is packed with over 200 people. Councilwoman Patricia wears on stage, looking significantly less confident than usual. She opens with an apology that sounds practiced and political. "I want to acknowledge that I made a serious error in judgment. I asked Mr. Marcus Webb to leave based solely on his appearance. I apologize to Mr. Webb and to all of you." When Marcus takes the microphone, 200 pairs of eyes watch him. He looks around the room at the community center his money built. "Thank you for coming tonight," he begins. "I'm not angry at Councilwoman Ware or at anyone else who dismissed me. I chose to live anonymously specifically to see how people treat those they perceive as having less. You all acted exactly as society has trained you to act. That's not an individual failing. It's a systemic issue." He pauses, choosing his words carefully. "For 20 years, I've walked among you, invisible. I've been ignored by baristas, followed by store security, dismissed at meetings, seated at the worst tables in restaurants. And through it all, I've been secretly funding the very institutions that serve this community. I built this community center. I funded the after-school programs your children attend. I did all of that not for recognition, but because I believe in this community." The room is completely silent now, everyone hanging on his words. "But here's what troubles me," Marcus continues. "Now that you know who I am, I've been treated like royalty. The same people who wouldn't make eye contact with me last month are now smiling and waving. And I find that deeply sad. Because it means that respect and dignity in our society are still tied to perceived wealth. That has to change." A woman stands from the audience. Her voice is trembling but strong. "Mr. Webb, I hear what you're saying, but isn't this hypocritical? You could have revealed yourself at any time, but instead you ran a social experiment on us without our consent." Marcus nods, appreciating the direct challenge. "That's a fair criticism. Yes, there's something problematic about what I did. I had the privilege of choosing poverty as a costume while real people suffer. But people don't believe how bad class-based discrimination is until they see concrete examples. And now you all have a story that I hope will make you think twice before judging someone based on their appearance." An older man stands from the back of the room. "I'm Harold Peterson. I've lived in this neighborhood for 42 years. I remember when Marcus moved here. I've seen him around, said hello a few times. Never knew he was wealthy. But you know what? It doesn't matter. Rich or poor, he was a good neighbor. That's what counts." The applause is thunderous. One by one, people stand to share their stories. A young woman talks about her brother who received a Horizon Foundation scholarship and is now a nurse. A man shares how the foundation saved his family farm. A woman describes the medical debt the foundation forgave after her husband's cancer treatment. Each story reveals just how much one person's compassion has rippled through countless lives. Tyler from the coffee shop stands up, nervous. "My name is Tyler Harrison. I've served Mr. Webb coffee almost every morning for 3 years, and I was terrible to him. Last week, I found out I'm receiving a grant for my photography. Mr. Webb approved it when I was still treating him like garbage. That's the kind of person he is. He doesn't withhold kindness because people don't deserve it. He gives it anyway, hoping they'll become better. I'm trying to be better." The applause for Tyler shakes the room. Marcus makes one final statement. "I'm going to continue funding the Horizon Foundation. I'm going to continue helping families and communities. But I'm also going to continue living simply, shopping at the same stores, eating at the same restaurants. I hope that my presence will serve as a reminder, everyone deserves respect. The person you pass on the street could be anyone, but their worth isn't determined by their bank balance. It's determined by their humanity. And we all have that in common." 3 months after the article publishes, something remarkable begins to happen. The Marcus Webb story doesn't fade from public consciousness. Instead, it sparks a movement. It starts on social media with the hashtag #InvisibleRespect, people sharing their own stories of being dismissed or judged based on appearance. A high school teacher in Portland creates a lesson plan based on Marcus's experiment. A college professor in Atlanta makes Marcus's story required reading. A minister in Nashville uses Marcus's example in a sermon about compassion. But the real change happens in quieter, more personal ways. At the coffee shop on West Adams Street, Tyler has transformed. He started a program where the shop provides free coffee to anyone who can't afford it. He greets every customer warmly, regardless of how they're dressed or how they pay. He's also pursuing his photography seriously, his Instagram following growing rapidly. But more importantly, he treats every person he encounters as valuable, as worthy of his time and attention. At the neighborhood market, Derek has become an advocate for respectful customer service. He started a training program for new employees about unconscious bias. The store manager, impressed by the initiative, has promoted him to assistant manager. Derek tells everyone who will listen that Marcus Webb changed his life with a lesson about humanity that he'll never forget. At Bennett's Steakhouse, Richard Bennett has implemented a policy called equal tables. They no longer have designated bad tables. Every table gets the same care, the same service quality. They've also started a monthly program where they invite families from local shelters to have free meals, served with full dignity and respect. Victoria, the former hostess, coordinates this program, finding purpose in making sure people who usually get dismissed actually feel seen and valued. One Saturday afternoon, Marcus is working in his small front yard when a luxury car pulls up. A man in an expensive suit steps out. Marcus recognizes him immediately, Richard, one of the men from Bennett's who had been dismissive of the Horizon Foundation's work. Richard approaches hesitantly. "Mr. Webb? I'm Richard Castellano. I don't know if you remember me, but I was at Bennett's. I said the Horizon Foundation was enabling dependency." Marcus stands, wiping dirt from his hands. "I remember." Richard winces. "I was wrong, and I came here to tell you that in person. After your story came out, I started really looking at what the Horizon Foundation does. I realized I've been an arrogant, privileged person who assumed that anyone struggling financially must be lazy. Your story forced me to confront how wrong I've been. What are you going to do about it?" Marcus asks. "I've started volunteering at a homeless shelter. I've made donations. But more than that, I'm trying to change how I see people. I run a manufacturing company with 400 employees. I've started actually talking to our line workers, learning their names, understanding their lives. I'm ashamed of how long it took me to do something so basic." They talk for an hour, sitting on Marcus's front steps, discussing business ethics, wealth inequality, the responsibilities that come with success. By the time Richard leaves, another person has looked beyond appearances and found unexpected depth. So what's the lesson of Marcus Webb's story? Is it simply that we should be kind to everyone because they might secretly be billionaires? No. That's missing the point entirely. The lesson is that everyone deserves dignity and respect regardless of their wealth, status, or appearance. The barista should have been kind to Marcus not because he was secretly rich, but because he was a human being. The store employee shouldn't follow people around because of how they look. The councilwoman shouldn't dismiss community members based on superficial judgments. Not because those people might be wealthy, but because it's wrong to treat anyone that way. Marcus Webb's 20-year experiment revealed something uncomfortable about American society. We've created a culture where respect is transactional, where dignity is earned through displays of wealth, where people's worth is constantly being calculated based on their perceived economic value. And that destroys the social fabric that holds communities together. But Marcus's story also revealed something hopeful. Change is possible. People can recognize their biases and work to overcome them. Communities can recommit to treating all members with dignity. One person, living with intention and purpose, really can make a difference. Today, the Horizon Foundation continues its work. Marcus still lives in his modest house on Orchard Street. He still shops at the same grocery store, eats at the same restaurants, walks the same streets. But now, people see him. Really see him. Not as a billionaire or as a poor man, but as a person who proved that wealth and humanity don't have to be mutually exclusive. And every morning at 7:30, Marcus walks into his coffee shop, orders his small black coffee, and Tyler serves it with a smile and genuine warmth. Not because Marcus is rich, but because that's how Tyler has learned to treat everyone. That small interaction, repeated thousands of times across America as Marcus's story continues to inspire people, represents a quiet revolution in how we see each other. It's a crisp autumn morning 1 year later, and Marcus is walking through Lincoln Park. As he walks, he passes all types of people: joggers in expensive athletic wear, workers in uniforms heading to jobs, parents with children, elderly couples on morning walks. And Marcus notices something beautiful: people are seeing each other. A businessman stops to help an elderly woman who's dropped her shopping bags. A teenager holds the door for a man using a walker. Small acts of recognition and kindness that might seem trivial but represent everything Marcus has been working toward. Marcus Webb gave away $8 billion and changed hundreds of thousands of lives directly. But his greatest gift might have been the example he set: that it's possible to have everything and choose humility, to be powerful and remain accessible, to be wealthy and stay human. That's the story of the invisible billionaire who became visible not to celebrate his wealth, but to challenge how we think about it. That's the story of Marcus Webb, the man who proved that respect should never be about what's in someone's wallet, but about recognizing the inherent dignity in every human being. And that's a lesson worth far more than any bank account. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe and share for more exciting stories.